For those of you that aren't familiar with transits, I wanted to touch on what transits are today, as I feel it's a very overlooked element of astrology when we're first learning about astrology. And it's such a pivotal part of who we are as human beings, because as our charts represent the foundations of our energy, they represent our psychological blueprint, how we are a manifestation of the energies at the time that we were born. It in itself, it's relatively stagnant. It points to certain positions or certain energies or dynamics that exist within us, sometimes latently within us, but it doesn't really show how we change and evolve over a lifetime, which we inevitably do. And this is what I think is really important to understand, is that transits in astrology represent the current movement of planets or celestial bodies in relation to our own birth chart. So when planets or celestial bodies make an aspect, form an aspect, be it conjunction, opposition, square, trine, and some of the minor aspects, when their current place in the cycle of their own orbit makes an aspect to our own personal planet, we experience certain energies, and depending on the nature of the transit. So from the sun through to Mars, they're quite short lasting visits or trips or experiences. We experience different lengths of these visitations, and it's all well and good to understand what the moon's currently doing, and it's all well and good to understand that Venus might be making a conjunction to our sun and on a given day or few days or weeks rather. However, for me, understanding outer planet transits are really important, because these are the transits that help mold who we become. They help evolve who we are as individuals, and understanding when these things happen and how to translate the experiences and the events that are happening during these times when they do make an aspect by transit, we can better integrate these energies, and we can have more of a conscious, direct influence on how, or we can at least better navigate how these energies affect us. So because Saturn through to Pluto, all these planets have a longer orbit. So Saturn, roughly 28-30 years, through to Pluto, 248 years to do a full orbit around the sun. So the further out we go relative to Earth, the longer that a specific planet has an impact on our personal planets. And because of this longer, call it visit or influence, there is a greater chance to experience and integrate whatever energy is currently being, that we're currently encountering when we are experiencing a transit. So for instance, at the moment, Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter are all in Capricorn. And you don't have to be a Capricorn to be experiencing these effects. Collectively, we all can experience the collective transit of having both Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn, and also Jupiter. However, if we've got certain planets within several degrees of where these planets are currently stationed, or we have planets we have personal planets in the sign of Cancer, so in the sign opposite Capricorn, or we have planets in Aries or Libra within a few degrees of a 90 degrees angle, we are going to notice the impact of the Saturn and Pluto, more importantly, transit, or we will be experiencing a transit. And so collectively, yes, we're all experiencing all the things that are going through collectively at the moment, huge changes relating to repression and constriction and and how we deal with feeling in some way either oppressed or restricted or challenged. We are all going through this collectively. However, those with personal planets in the positions that I just said will experience these challenges more directly. And if we can understand that a transit is an opportunity to evolve and learn and understand that it's something that's just not happening for the sake of it. It is something that is timed. It is something that we can navigate and utilize for our optimum benefit. No matter how difficult the circumstances are, there are always lessons that we can use for our benefit in the longer term. A lot of that won't be seen initially. A lot of it is in hindsight. So it's ultimately nothing happens just because. Everything does happen for a reason, and transits are one way of understanding the phases of growth that we go through. And it also allows us to reflect back in our own personal history. We can look back at what particular planets were transiting certain planets at a given time, and these are more noticeable when we're going through more challenging times, when we're going through more difficult, uncertain times. You can almost bet for sure that Chiron, Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto were making aspect to a particular planet, or our ascendant, or our midheaven, or there's something happening in the current state of, at the time, the current state of planetary motion in conjunction with our birth chart. So it wasn't just because, it wasn't just something that just happened. And this is a way of understanding that not only is astrology something that is quite literally occurring, it's a phenomenon that occurs that where we can't expect the exact outcome or we can't predict something exactly. We can at least be prepared, or at least understand that a given time is marked by certain energies. And all of a sudden it seems like things just don't happen because suffering doesn't just happen because there's something underlying that suffering. And it also helps us to not just believe in astrology for the sake of it, just okay, yes, I believe in an Aquarian and that just suits my identity very well, or I have moon in Sagittarius, or whatever it may be. It means that we can go back and time certain events. We can see the correlation between when certain things were happening in our lives that weren't exactly fun and joyous, or if they were, we can usually see that there's certain planetary movement that was happening that was linked with what we were experiencing at the time. And if we can do this in hindsight, as much as I don't believe in predicting, and I don't believe in focusing too much of an outcome, or being fearful, or expecting too much from the future, we can at least have a base level of understanding of certain energies that we will be exposed to. And if we can do that, we can take responsibility of our lives, and we can help to navigate our lives in a way that's best suited to the timing of certain energies we're going to be exposed to, or at least be prepared through building resilience and certain practices that are going to be best suited to the kind of things we're going to be exposed to. So I hope that it's somewhat broad and lengthy way of describing transits, but I think understanding the breadth and the depth of how transits affect us, rather than just understanding our own birth chart as this stagnant, unchanging configuration, we can better prep ourselves to grow and evolve and do it consciously, and to do it with healing in mind, with growth in mind, and also without blaming any particular blaming ourselves, really, or blaming any person, to know that everything is part of the everything. And everything always, in everything, there's opportunity for your ultimate benefit, and everything that happens to you is for a reason, and everything is for your growth, even if in the moment it doesn't seem like it. And it's usually the denial of this reality is why we end up suffering, is because we have not yet learnt that everything does happen for our ultimate wholeness, our wholeness of human experience, wholeness of our wholeness based on fulfilling our potential, wholeness based on learning the things that we never knew even existed. And yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to touch on with transits, and I will be going to talking about transits more. But yeah, I definitely invite you to explore more about how transits work, and to not ever be too bogged down to individual readings or interpretations of what certain transits mean, because everything's symbolic. The energy in itself exists, but people's interpretation and therefore prediction of transits are going to differ greatly, and they are to be taken with a grain of salt. And in time, the more you understand yourself and how the energy, what the energies are and how they work, the more that you can navigate and consciously choose how these energies affect you. So thanks for listening today, guys, and I'll be in touch again soon.